Hello, and welcome to the next episode in our College Strategy podcast series. I'm Cathryn Chadwick. I'm Vice President of the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health with a remit for training and assessment. And today I'm joined by Dr. Emma Dyer, who is the Chair of the Trainees Committee at the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health. Welcome, Emma.
Hi, Cathryn. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
We're here to talk about our college strategy in action, sharing stories of programmes and campaigns that are making an impact for our members, our patients and the community. From our new RCPCH Learning Hub, our Wellbeing Innovation Networks, to our improved specialty training programme Progress Plus that we're going to talk about today. The college has been really busy with several projects focused on members. One of these projects that I'm really proud of is the work being done to train and support our trainees. So how do we build a paediatrician? Is there a magic recipe with special ingredients? Well, maybe. What I do know is that it begins with intentionality, which is based on our college strategy. So Emma, I guess, should we start with, in your view as Chair of the Trainees Committee, how important is it to be intentional in our focus on trainees?
Well, I think that's a really interesting word, the kind of being intentional. And I think when we're talking about building a paediatrician, we do have to be intentional. We can't just kind of put paediatric trainees in hospitals and just hope for the best and assume that at the end of it, they'll come out as a good paediatrician. I think we do need to be intentional about it. But I also think that building a paediatrician is more than just about good training. Paediatricians are a really diverse group of people that bring a real breadth of skill and experience and talent. So it's not just training, but it's everything else the college does as well. So the college is doing loads of stuff at the moment, as well as training, things like global child health, advocating for children and young people in all different areas. So we've seen things recently about kind of air pollution and child health inequalities and many other things. And I think the thing that I found really amazing is that trainees are really involved in every strand of that work at the college. Every committee, every working group has a trainee voice on it. And for me personally, as chair of the Trainees Committee, I sit as part of the executive committee of the college. So I get to be in all these quite important meetings with some very important people. And every so often someone will turn around and say, Emma, what do you think? Which can be a bit daunting, but actually they really value the trainee voice and they really want to know and they take it on board and they will make changes depending on what trainees have said. So I think having that trainee voice kind of throughout all the college work means that right from kind of early training, we're helping trainees to shape what the college is doing, which builds good paediatricians from a lifelong careers point of view. So that's something that I think is really key to building a good paediatrician, as well as training, which I know we're going to talk more about as we go through.
Yeah, there's loads of interesting things that you've said there. I think I'm so pleased to hear that you value your experience is that the trainee voice is heard throughout the college, because that's one of the things I love most about the role I have, is that interaction with trainees and the fact that actually you are our consultant colleagues of the future and you're such a huge part of the workforce, our colleague, all of our colleagues, and making sure that we hear your view and your voice for all the decisions that the college makes is so important. And you talked there about building a paediatrician, starting with training, and we'll talk about that a bit in a minute, but also we continue to build paediatricians all the way through their careers, don't we? And that's what the Lifelong Careers and Thrive Paediatric programme is about, making sure that we are delivering the right support and the right training to paediatricians as they move through their careers and perhaps change direction and change focus as they go. So there's some really interesting concepts there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Thrive Paediatrics work is really exciting, and I know that we've now appointed 2 clinical fellows which to that work, which is amazing, and both of our fellows have had experience in paediatric training, so they know what it's like, and they bring such valuable life experience to those roles to look at how we can build paediatricians in a more sustainable way, thinking about retention, which we know is a huge problem, and how we can kind of be a bit more forward thinking and a bit more flexible in how we build those paediatricians. And I know that as well as that, the college is kind of involved right from the very beginning. So we have really strong links with the UK Aspiring Paediatric Society, as well as kind of foundation doctors. I mean, we saw the foundation doctor prizes at the conference recently. And actually recently, we've just launched the undergraduate curriculum for paediatrics as well. So even right from medical school, we're thinking about how we can build good paediatricians for the future.
Yes, it was lovely, wasn't it, at the conference to see both the medical student prizes and the foundation prizes, and to have their presence and their enthusiasm at the college, as you say, to see our colleagues of the future. So should we think a bit more about training? Because Progress Plus, as we both know very well, is launching this August, September, after many years of preparation. And we've worked really extensively with a wide group of people to develop Progress Plus. So we've worked with college tutors, we've worked with examiners, we've worked with trainees extensively, and children and young people, which is very exciting. I'm sure you'd agree that building a paediatrician is about having a strong foundation in training. What's your view of the new curriculum and how the college has managed that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Part of the college strategy talks about being committed to delivering high quality care to children and young people. And I don't think you can be serious about doing that if you're not also committed to providing good quality training to those that are going to be giving that care to our children and young people. So I think we have to have a strong foundation in training. And I think Progress Plus is kind of taking us forward. I mean, when we brought Progress in, we moved away from this tick box list of, a million conditions that you had to have seen, more to thinking about what actually is it that makes a good paediatrician? What are the kind of high level capabilities that people need to have? So that kind of paved the way for Progress Plus coming in. And now we're looking more at kind of modernising training, hopefully having more flexibility, having training to be a bit more individualised and personalised. Because like we said, paediatricians are a wide group of people that all bring different skills and will all go on to have quite different and varied careers, but at the heart of that is still the child and the young person. So those high level capabilities are really important, even if you're going to end up as a kind of super subspecialist. We still, as paediatricians, I think, are quite good at thinking about the child and the young person as a whole in their kind of context and their family and their school and what's going on outside of their cardiac condition or whatever it is that we're looking at. So I think that's a really good grounding for all paediatricians, wherever they end up. And I think you're right when you were talking about how many people have been involved in this. And one of the things that I'm really proud of is the involvement from children and young people. I think there's probably not many colleges where you can open their curriculum and in the curriculum you see direct quotations from the patient group that they're serving, and a curriculum that was shaped by that patient group. So, asking our children and young people, well, what do you want a paediatrician to look like? What do you want your doctor to be like? I think has been really interesting, sometimes a challenge, I think, but it's brilliant that we've got that input into the curriculum. So that's something I think is really good. And like we were saying before, I think kind of good training doesn't just happen. We have to be intentional about it, and we have to think about it. And one of the recent documents the college has produced is the Paediatrician of the Future document, which outlines what really good training should look like. I think it's a really good document, actually. It's quite aspirational. I think sometimes it can be a bit of a challenge to deliver, especially when we've got, lots of workforce pressures, ever growing waiting lists and increasing patient numbers. But I think it is really important that we do think about delivering really good training. We want every trainee to get a good experience and good quality training, whatever hospital or centre they end up in. And I think, Cathryn, I know you've talked before about what training used to look like, or kind of not look like, I suppose.
Yes.
And what happens when you're not intentional about training, and you get, it's a bit potluck and people fall off the wagon a bit and get a bit lost because there isn't those support structures that hopefully now are starting to exist, I guess.
Absolutely. I think we've come a really long way in terms of training and curricular development across medicine. But I think in paediatrics, we really have taken that and run with it and been leaders in that. I'm really proud of the fact that we were the first people to publish our new curriculum when Progress was published in 2018. But yeah, you're right. I'm old enough to remember training as it used to be. And when I started my training, you just got the jobs you thought you needed to progress to where you thought you might want to end up. And some of that worked very well if you were lucky enough to get the right jobs and the right local mentoring and make your way through the system. But actually, lots of people fell by the wayside and were lost. There were no curricula, there was no quality control. And so things had to change. And then when training started to come into the modern era in the 1900s and early 2000s, with the creation of run-through programs and schools and curricula, that was definitely a step in the right direction. So trainees knew where they were going to be. They were going to be in a supported local system, move around that region and progress through a series of jobs stepwise until they were ready to be consultants. But I think we all know the difficulties with that system. It really did become really rigid. You're right, the curricula was full of tick boxes about learning about specific conditions. And there was very little opportunity, or it was very difficult for trainees to go out of programme and develop other sorts of experiences. So although it was well-intentioned, it really... probably trainees weren't that well served, and certainly our children and young people weren't necessarily that well served by those curricula. So I'm really excited by the direction of travel now, where we're incorporating much more flexibility. Trainees can move out of programs, gain additional experiences, which will contribute to their sort of generic capabilities. And the capabilities themselves, as you said yourself, are much more tailored to the breadth of what we need to deliver care in the modern environment. So we know that medical care is becoming much more complex. Our children's needs are becoming more complex, not just with their medical conditions, but also with their mental health, the environments they live in, and the fact that our curriculum is addressing those generic capabilities is, I think, really useful. Like you, I love the quotes from the children and young people in the curriculum, and some of them are challenging. I particularly like some of them that talk about the well-being of our doctors, and how children and young people don't want their doctors to be looking tired, and want them to have the energy to engage with them about all these different issues and the things that are going on in their lives.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think they always amaze me at the kind of how insightful they are and how much they kind of get about what's going on that we don't always give them credit for. And yeah, absolutely, their contributions to the curriculum are so important and so vital, because actually, if we can't be the doctors that they need us to be, then we're not doing it right.
No, absolutely. And they do challenge us, don't they, to come into their world and understand the things that affect them in terms of how we communicate with them, how we recognise their differences, their challenges, their mental health challenges. So, I think their input to the curriculum has been really fantastic. So I think just thinking about that change in the training environment and the curricula, I think in the old days, training was very much on an apprentice model. And that was kind of doable because people worked extremely long hours. There were relatively fewer number of doctors in training. But in the current climate, when people are working shift work, when the number of doctors, trainees and non-trainees is far greater, we really do need to be intentional about how we train. We really can't just expect trainees to come and learn by doing the service work. Having said that, I think service and training are inextricably linked. And there are loads of opportunities to learn within service. But that's where the Paediatrician of the Future document really comes into its own, because it gives fantastic examples, doesn't it, about how you might pull learning out of every service and work environment and every patient. I think one of the mantras of the Paediatrician of the Future is that every patient is a learning opportunity, and a rich learning opportunity.
No, absolutely. And I think it's also about thinking a bit outside of the box. So you might have a child in front of you that's come in with an exacerbation of asthma or something. But rather than saying, oh, well, I'm now going to learn about the management of asthma, it might be that actually you explore the fact that they are living in poor housing conditions, which is actually contributing to the asthma, and actually what else is going on in that child's life. And so it's not just about the condition you're seeing in front of you, but the learning you can get from that patient, looking at them as a much broader kind of person in their own right, in their own environment, and what else is going on. So it's, thinking a bit outside the box as well, rather than just, well, this is now my tick box for asthma. So I think that document highlights it really well.
Yeah, and I think that plays into the idea that it's not about where you learn, it's about how you learn. Mm-hmm. So I know one of the things about Progress Plus that concerns some people is the fact that actually there are no specific mandatory blocks of posts that trainees have to go into. So a trainee doesn't have to do a 6-month block in the community, for instance, doesn't have to do a specific length of time in a neonatal post, for instance. And actually, when you look at all those capabilities, it is possible to achieve them in almost any clinical setting in exactly the way that you've outlined, using any patient and the rich training opportunities that can bring with it. Of course, I think trainees still will do most of those traditional clinical placements, and trainees will need to gain the capabilities to be able to work as middle grades in district general hospitals towards the end of their core training. So I don't think it's quite as worrying as some people are thinking, but there is also the opportunity to go to more diverse placements, community placements with an interface with integrated care or public health or child mental health. So I think the possibilities for training are more diverse and exciting with Progress Plus.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's the kind of opportunities that you could create. And I know some places are developing some really exciting sounding placements. I've heard about sort of integrated child health placements where people are kind of setting up services with local GPs and all sorts of things. So I think it provides really great opportunity to kind of have a bit of a rethink about what training looks like, and actually kind of see what we can do and work with our primary health colleagues or work with our CAMS colleagues. And that way we can benefit not just our trainees, but also kind of other specialties by learning together, which I think is really exciting.
Yes, and sets up good links for the future for more integrated working in the future, because that's where you make your contacts, don't you, often in the earlier years of your training and your career, and those contacts stay so that you can work effectively together in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess the other pillar to working with trainees is about the support and the support systems we put in place. And I know that there's lots of good examples of that you come across in the Trainees Committee.
Yeah, I mean, I think firstly, having a Trainees Committee is one of them. So, we have reps in every region, and we also have reps for different kind of areas within the college. So that's a really good way that trainees can feed into the college, raise concerns, make change. And so I think that's really important. And it's a really good way of embedding that trainee voice like we talked about at the start. And like one example of work that came out of the Trainees Committee is the Trainee Charter, which for anybody that hasn't seen it is on the website, but kind of outlines what trainees should expect from their training units. So it talks about things like SPA time, making that kind of built into rotas so that trainees are getting the time within their jobs to do everything that's expected of them to meet their capabilities. But also things like having breaks, being able to access food, all of this kind of stuff is in the Trainee Charter. And that is something that I know it can be difficult to always achieve all of the time, but I think more and more units are working towards that, and it at least sets a benchmark of what we should be expecting. So I think that's, a really great thing that the Trainees Committee was able to do. And then in terms of other support at the college, I've worked quite a lot with the trainee services team, who are brilliant. And when there's issues that crop up with things like the portfolio, which obviously does happen, they're really good at being able to sort it out and fix things, answer questions, queries. The team that are working on Progress Plus as well, when things come up and people aren't sure, what does this mean for me? They're brilliant at being able to get back to people and answer those queries. And they work really hard, actually. And then there's all the work that they do supporting educational supervisors, providing training for them, and that feeds down through the college tutor system to provide kind of support locally. And then in terms of other things the college is doing, there's all the work they're doing on EDI, and there's obviously trainees involved with that too. And through that, they've also got links with Soft Landings, who are doing amazing work. And it was so nice at the conference to see them everywhere, actually, which was great. Yeah. They just seem to be kind of going from strength to strength, which is amazing to see. And I think, we don't always get things right all the time. But from my experience of working within the college as a trainee rep, when there is issues or when trainees feed things back, they are genuinely listened to. And I've seen lots of examples where that's then been acted on, changes have been made, and they generally really do want to try and improve things for trainees as much as possible. So I think I really value that willingness to listen to the trainee voice.
That's brilliant. Gosh, so much there to think about and talk about, isn't there? I think not a lot of our members don't know what goes on behind the scenes and might be surprised to hear the amount of work that goes on from training services and the support that we all get in the roles we have. And I agree. I think they do an amazing job and have worked so hard to get the Progress Plus curriculum out, as well as all the other roles that they perform. Just wanted to go back to the trainee charter, because I think that was a brilliant piece of work that, as you say, was led by the Trainees Committee, and they continue to have input into it, don't you? Because you're benchmarking units against it and revising it as things change. I think it has been challenging to some units, and it's difficult to mandate what's in the trainee charter. I hope it's self-evident that all of the items in the trainee charter are absolutely the way we should be treating our trainees and running our units. But in some units, that is hard. But certainly in my own unit, we've managed to use the trainee charter and the requirement for self-development time that sits within the trainee charter to successfully bid for some extra staff so that we can review our rotas and allow that self-development time. So I think it does have really good use, and I hope that in local units, trainees and trainers are working together to implement the trainee charter, and where they can't, to point up the areas of difficulty so that their managers and the system can help them achieve what's in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think by having it kind of written somewhere, which is a kind of college approved document, it gives people that I don't know what the right word is, kind of leverage almost, to say this is something that's really important, and actually, yes, it can be hard to achieve, but it's something that we need to be striving towards. And without that, I think it's much harder for trainees or trainers to kind of fight for those things like building SPA time into the rota. But by having that in a document approved by the college, I think it just helps people to make that argument that this is something that we need, this is something the college recognises as important.
Yes. I just wanted to come back as well to the support that we give our supervisors and our trainers, because we've already said, haven't we, that training needs to be intentional, that we are really trying to shift much more from that apprenticeship model to an intentional, individualised training pathway. But that really needs our supervisors to be supported and upskilled. So over the last 18 months, we've appointed an officer for trainer development, which is a new officer role. And Lizzie Starkey in that role has been doing a really, really good job liaising with college tutors, who are, again, one of our linchpin in the chain of communication between us and the educational supervisors, doing lots of work to support college tutors, to talk about Progress Plus, but also work to support educational supervisors directly, looking to review our effective educational supervision course to bring it up to the more modern times with Progress Plus, and to increase the content and change the content. So I think that's a really good pillar of work that we're doing as well.
Yeah, and as we move into Progress Plus and hopefully are moving more towards a longitudinal supervision model, I think that's going to become even more important, because those educational supervisors are really going to be key for people's training and development. But I think that brings a whole kind of new opportunity. And I think, as well as being great for trainees, it's also better for supervisors to have a more kind of meaningful relationship with their trainees that lasts for more than just a brief kind of 6 months where you see them a couple of times, but to really know kind of who that trainee is and what their life looks like and how their career is progressing. I think must be much more rewarding as a supervisor as well.
Oh, very much so. You know that one of my big topics is trying to really embed capability-based training. So we're really, really lucky in paediatrics in that we have been capability-based for a long time. Which means that you don't have to do a specific number of days in training before you get your CCT. You have to meet the capabilities. Our new Progress Plus curriculum is 7 years long, and that's because we at the college and the GMC have agreed that that is a reasonable length of time to train a new paediatrician, and many trainees will take that 7 years, more or less. But there will be lots of trainees. You talked at the beginning about the diversity of experience amongst our trainees. Many of our trainees come with pre-existing experience and will be able to achieve those capabilities quicker and move through training quicker. And that's what we mean by capability-based progression. So when trainees have met the capabilities for their core training level, they'll be able to move through into specialty level. But I think traditionally with our 6-month model of supervision, supervisors and trainees maybe have looked at each 6 months as a very discrete bundle of training, rather than taking that overview of a whole level of training and getting to know the pattern of that training throughout a level. And I think having longitudinal supervision will really enable capability-based progression, because it will do exactly what you say. It will mean that trainees and trainers can develop a relationship, can talk about how they're progressing at every meeting, and can then decide together how quickly or otherwise trainees are progressing and when they might move to the next stage. And that will enable them to talk to schools and plan placements with plenty of notice. So hopefully there'll be much more joined up training and supervision.
Yeah.
In our region, we've introduced longitudinal supervision, and we've done it by introducing it for the new starters over the last couple of years, and hopefully that will then progress through the system. So I've been lucky enough to be a longitudinal supervisor for 2 years now. And you're absolutely right. It's such a good relationship. It's so much better than changing every 6 months. We know each other well. I know the strengths and the areas of challenge, and we can work on them together rather than spending half of each supervision meeting catching up with what's gone on before.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great model.
I think it's really good. It means you don't have to sort of, every supervision meeting kind of explain who you are, what you've done, where you've come from. You kind of already know that, which is nice. And I think also because, trainees are more than just their training. If you have that longitudinal relationship, then you will have an understanding of what else might be going on in that person's life. They might have challenges going on outside of work, which actually means that, the next couple of months, they're going to be taking a bit more of a step back from maybe that QI project, but actually then later on, when things are better and, they're more settled in whatever was going on, then they can do a bit more on that. And I think if you have that longitudinal overview, then you'll have an understanding of that. Whereas if you're changing every 6 months, then those supervisors just won't get to know you in the same way. So I think that's really important, from thinking about that kind of flexibility in careers, but also retention and all of these kind of things, making trainees feel that they're valued and not just a number on a spreadsheet filling a rota gap, but they're actually, people with lives and challenges outside of work.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, training's long enough, isn't it? And training isn't something you do before life starts. No. It's something you do while you're living your adult life. And I think it's really important that we acknowledge that. And yeah, certainly when I started training, I didn't have a supervisor because they didn't exist. And then I reached a point in my training where educational supervisors were introduced. And I remember at the time I had 3 very small children, under 5. And I remember my supervisor saying to me, well, yeah, it's all very well and day job's fine, but, you should be doing research, you should be this, you should be that. And I thought, do you not know what my life looks like?
Yeah.
And, I'm just about managing to keep the plates spinning at work, but I've got a life outside work. And then obviously when the children grew up a bit, I did exactly what you said. I galloped ahead with some other things and moved at a faster speed. So, yeah, I think having a longitudinal supervisor and an overview of progression that isn't just chunked up into 6-month chunks will really help with all sorts of things, not just progression, but also, as you say, retention and well-being.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, there's still work to do, which is why we've got the work stream of Thrive Paediatrics, because we know that whilst we're trying to make training more flexible and improve things from that point of view, there is still elements of it that don't work for some people, for people that have other things going on, that maybe can't move around every 6 months or have caring responsibilities. So I think it's really important that we do this work to look at how we can improve things further so that we can keep people in paediatric training if that's what they want to do, and they're not leaving because the training program just doesn't work for them. They're, staying because actually there's a way around that, and they can continue to train whilst also being present in whatever it is they need to be present in outside of work. So I think that this work stream is really important, and I'm really excited for what they're doing. I think there's some really great thinking and work going on there. So it's a kind of watch this space at the moment, but I'm excited to see what they do.
Yes, definitely. I think it's very exciting, especially as I'm coming to that other end of my career to see how the college is going to support me to use my experience and craft the last few years of my career.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's about lifelong careers, and from undergraduate curriculum all the way through to kind of retirement and beyond, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess coming back to our building a great paediatrician, which is a great analogy. It's a bit like children who go to build a bear, isn't it? How can we put together a paediatrician that is fit for purpose? And it is much more, isn't it, than about learning about the specific conditions and the medicine behind it, because there's so much more to being a paediatrician. It's thinking about children's mental health, especially at the moment as that's become such a big topic. It's also thinking about population health and how we can affect the lives that all our children live, which then impacts on their health and their well-being and their adult lives. And I'm so pleased that we've incorporated a lot of those into our curriculum as key capabilities to have experience and understanding of child mental health, to consider the wider environment that children live in.
Yeah, I think especially at the moment, I mean, there's so many challenges facing our children and young people, all the time. And I think those kind of broad capabilities reflect the broad work of what the college does as well. And that being a paediatrician is more than just about the child in front of you, but being able to use your voice as a paediatrician to make a difference on a population level. So we've seen that through kind of the work that the college has been doing in child health inequalities, climate change. And these are all things that children and young people care about as well, as things that they are worried about, that they want to see action on. So I think it's really amazing to see that we've been able to use our voice as paediatricians to try and improve the health and chances of young people, not just the ones in front of us, but hopefully on a wider scale. And, there's lots of work to do, and, it's a small drop in the ocean, but at least it's a drop. At least we're trying to make some change. So I think that's really important. And I think it was really well reflected at the recent conference, actually. This huge gathering, national and actually almost international, because we have people from all over the world that came, of paediatricians, and the kind of topics that were the key kind of plenary speakers or the overarching themes for the days were not the ins and outs of a specific treatment or a new research paper in X, Y, and Z, but it was climate change, air pollution, child health inequalities, and kindness, actually. And these are things that matter to children and young people. And I'm really proud to be able to come back from that and say to children and young people that this is what their doctors were discussing, this is what they were talking about, because I think that those are things that our children and young people really care about and they want their doctors to be talking about. So I think, that was something I was really proud of. And I think those are the things that help build a good paediatrician, as well as, of course, all the training and the knowledge of individual conditions and medical backgrounds in things. But it's broader than that.
Absolutely. And actually those medical science condition capabilities are really important. But what you're learning about now will be really different in 10 or 15 years' time. And so what we really need to equip paediatricians to do is the ability to consider the generic things and all those topics that you've talked about, and to understand how to learn and work together throughout the rest of their career, and to train paediatricians for the populations and the conditions that they will be living in and interacting with, not just now, but in 20 years' time. I think the other thing that, listening to that list of what a paediatrician does, it's complex, isn't it? Being a paediatrician is a complex but potentially a powerful position, because we can use our voice to advocate for children in all sorts of arenas. And what the curriculum aims to do as well is to give trainees the leadership and communication and management capabilities to really make that voice heard as they move through their careers. So that's another strand of it, really.
Yeah, and I think it's exciting to see trainees really taking that and running with it as well. I mean, you only had to look at some of the posters at the conference or to hear about some work that trainees are doing, and the kind of schemes that they're setting up and the work that they're doing in all sorts of places to try and do exactly that, to try and improve life chances of children and young people, to advocate for them, to make change. And I think it's always a really positive experience when sometimes it can be easy to kind of get a bit disillusioned with the healthcare system and you're kind of busy at work and there's rota gaps everywhere, and actually then you go and see all these amazing paediatricians that are really doing those things and making changes for children and young people. It's always really inspiring and positive to see that.
Yeah, well, it makes me feel really optimistic about the future. I think the future of child health and child advocacy in this country and globally, because we do a lot of work globally, is absolutely safe in your hands and the trainees' hands. So that's, very exciting.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I guess on that positive note, maybe that's time to wrap up. I really hope that we have explained how training has evolved and the current thinking behind Progress Plus, which I know some people are a bit worried about, but it does have such a lot of potential for training great paediatricians moving into the future, and that the college is doing such a lot of good work to support not just trainees, but doctors throughout the totality of their career. So it's been a real pleasure. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you for talking to me.
Thanks for having me. Always good to have a chat with you, Cathryn. I hope, something useful came out of it, but I definitely enjoyed it.
Good. So thank you to our listeners for joining us. If you're thinking about which specialty to choose, or if you're just about to begin your training, visit our website at rcpch.ac.uk to get more information about Progress Plus and specialty training guidance and resources that you can download.